Captain Kira Evans had seen more than her fair share of hardship in her years as a Special Forces officer for the United Earth Alliance. Sent on one mission after another, often into hostile territories, she had learned not to feel. Emotions were a weakness, and in the battlefield, that could be deadly. But even Kira's hardened heart couldn't prepare her for what she would find on the outer reaches of the galaxy. It started as a routine reconnaissance mission. A distress signal had been picked up by the fleet, originating from a derelict ship floating just outside the known sector. No survivors had been detected, but the signal was persistent, and the fleet had decided it was worth investigating. Kira was part of the team that had been dispatched to investigate. They were the best of the best, a small group of elite soldiers trained for high-risk operations. They didn't expect much, maybe a few signs of alien activity or an abandoned ship. The galaxy was full of mysteries after all, but most of them weren't important. When the team boarded the ship, they found it eerily quiet. The lights were dim, and the air smelled stale, like the kind of place that had been abandoned for years. There was no sign of a struggle, no remnants of the crew. Kira's instincts told her something was wrong, but she couldn't explain why. The farther they moved into the ship's corridors, the more oppressive the silence became. They finally found it in the lower levels of the ship, in the cargo hold. A large cage, the kind used to hold dangerous creatures, stood in the center of the room. Inside the cage was a young alien girl, chained to the bars, her limbs shackled with heavy restraints. Her pale blue skin was bruised, and her clothes, what little of them remained, were torn. Her long, silver hair hung in matted strands around her face, and her wide, frightened eyes locked on Akira as soon as she stepped into the room. "Please," the girl whispered weakly, her voice barely a sound. "Help me?" The soldiers around Kira were hesitant, but she didn't hesitate. She approached the cage and knelt down, meeting the girl's gaze. "Who did this to you?" Kira asked, her voice calm but filled with urgency. The girl's eyes filled with tears as she slowly lifted her hand, reaching through the bars of the cage. "They came from another world. They kept me here for experiments. Please, I don't know how much longer I can survive." Kira's heart clenched. She had seen suffering before, but this was different. This was a being, an innocent life, locked away and tortured for reasons that Kira couldn't understand. She turned to her team. "Get the restraints. We're freeing her." As the team moved to secure the girl, Kira could feel the weight of the moment. The girl's broken form in front of her spoke volumes about the cruelty she had endured. The aliens' people, wherever they were from, had been subjected to unspeakable horrors. Kira didn't know who the girl was, but it didn't matter. She had to get her out of here. The restraints were removed, and Kira carefully helped the girl to her feet. She was frail and weak, but there was a spark of something in her eyes, something that hadn't been completely extinguished by the torment she had suffered. Kira made a quick decision. "We're taking her back to the ship. Let's move out now." But as they made their way to the ship's exit, they were met by resistance. A group of heavily armed aliens, their faces hidden behind masks, emerged from the shadows. The ship's true captors had arrived. "We cannot allow you to leave with her." One of the aliens spoke, his voice mechanical and cold. He held a weapon in his hand, pointing it directly at Kira. Kira's soldiers immediately raised their weapons, and a tense standoff ensued. The alien girl cowered behind Kira, clutching her protector's uniform. Kira's mind raced as she realized what they were up against. These weren't just random kidnappers. These were soldiers trained and ready to fight. "We don't want any trouble," Kira said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Let her go. She's not yours to keep." But the aliens didn't listen. They advanced, weapons raised, and Kira knew it was time to act. She signaled to her team, and the firefight began. The air was filled with the sound of gunfire, explosions echoing off the walls of the derelict ship. Kira moved quickly, taking cover and leading her team in a precise, tactical retreat. But the aliens were relentless, pushing forward with brutal force. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. In the chaos, Kira's team was beginning to falter. One of her soldiers went down, hit by enemy fire, and another was pinned down by the sheer number of attackers. Kira's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't let this end in failure. Not now. Not with a girl so close to freedom. Suddenly, she felt a tug at her arm. She turned to find the alien girl standing beside her, a look of fierce determination in her eyes. "I can help," the girl said, her voice stronger now. "You freed me. Let me help you." Kira stared at her in shock. "You're still weak." "No," the girl interrupted, her voice firm. "I have power. I was chosen. They made me this way." Before Kira could protest, the girl raised her hands, and a pulse of energy erupted from her, knocking the attacking aliens off their feet. The force of it sent shockwaves through the ship, and the remaining enemies were thrown back, their weapons scattered. Kira stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. The girl, though frail and small, had just turned the tide of the battle in their favor. With the aliens temporarily disabled, Kira's team regrouped and pushed forward, making their way to the exit. They quickly boarded the transport ship and took off, the girl now safely in Kira's arms. As they left the derelict ship behind, Kira glanced at the alien girl. "What did you mean by chosen? Who are you?" The girl met Kira's gaze, her eyes filled with a wisdom that belied her youth. "I am the last of my kind. I was born with the power to save my people or to destroy them. The decision is mine now." Kira couldn't comprehend the weight of what the girl had just revealed, but she understood one thing. This girl, this alien, was not just a survivor. She was a force, and Kira had just saved the one being who could change everything. As they sped away from the planet, the vastness of the galaxy before them seemed both infinite and small. Kira had done what no one else had done. She had answered a cry for help, and in doing so, had changed the fate of an entire species. But the journey was far from over. The girl's power, the ancient forces that had shaped her, were only beginning to unfold. Kira Evans had done more than save a life. She had become a part of something greater, something far beyond the stars.